Hi, everybody. Yeah, I kind of look like shit. Sorry about that. I'm just getting ready to go uh, hibernate for 18 hours or so. But I just got back from Bumblebee. I went to go see it with my kid brother. Um, we took not quite knowing what we were gonna get ourselves into. We took a gamble. We sat right the hell up in the front row. I can declaratively answer the question from you. Uh, I know that is already formed on all of your lips. Is the score good? Yeah, and the movie that it goes to with is really good too. um, no, this was a great movie. I know that I'm walking on eggshells a little bit here. Just knowing how near and dear the Bay films are to a lot of people's hearts, and the '86 film in particular is to a lot of people. But in terms of having a beginning, middle, end, and define characters who have arcs that resolve in ways before the story is over. This really is objectively the best Transformers movie we have ever had in any medium. Predacons rising! No, this is better than that. This could very much be one of the cases where it's like, okay, so yeah, objectively that wasn't a terrible sit through. It was more coherent than the others, but I didn't care for it personally. I really liked this movie. I thought this was a blast. I don't know how up to date some of you guys are keeping on the creative team behind this, but very obviously it's not directed by Michael Bay. This is the CEO of Leica, actually. So they just watching the like the way that things are framed and the interaction of characters on the screen and the way that body language is conveyed. It's amazing to see the difference that somebody who had to kind of learn how to do character nuance through had to learn how to do had to learn how to draw characters and pose models, and just the effect that has on the way that the movie looks. It's very much an 80s girl and her ex kind of movie. That way with in particular Iron Giant and ET vibes for any of you who out there who have seen either of those. And that it in many ways it is pretty much a straight retelling of those stories, but no, like I mean, like just knowing what you're getting into there. There's not a ton of surprises to be had there, except for the fact that I was continuously engaged and enjoying it on a level that I can't necessarily say for any of the others. It's a movie that is not doesn't necessarily bring anything narratively to the table that we haven't seen any things. It's very much a smaller scale story, but it's so much the better for it. I was actually I convinced my brother to sit through the credits to see like where Michael Bay because he did serve as a producer in this movie, and to see where he fell on the totem pole as the credits went, and it was pretty far along. So maybe producing it in the same way that Spielberg produced the first movie, where it's like, yeah, I produced. Check, please. No, but I'm trying to think. I don't know if I don't know how far I want to go into the rest of this without maybe addressing the elephant in the room, in that as much as these movies love to dick with their own continuity, I am 90 to 95% certain that this is a reboot. And I see, I'm not sure how much I want to stick with that necessarily. No, I do. It's really hard to fucking tell when the meter by which all your other continuity is judged is the fucking last night. Ah, fuck that movie. Like the ending is directly contradictory. It would have to be something along the ilk of Bumblebee, like coming to Earth for however many centuries and fighting in World War II, and then getting shot back up into space just to fall back down again and resume the plot of this movie like nothing happened. So yeah, I wasn't sure until until he I wasn't sure really until the very end though. And I know that's going to be a turnoff for some people, which I'm sorry about. It's not really something that bothers me. And I would urge against maybe refusing to see this out of that principle, because they are going to keep making more of these movies. And I know some of you liked Last Night. I know some of you didn't. I'm one of the ones that really didn't. I thought this was a step up in likability, first and foremost, but just the way that it's produced is so much more streamlined. The characters are very likable and very nuanced. The action in it is actually fantastic. There is a the final fight scene in this, it takes place in a shipyard, and honestly, like, if you don't care anything about the plots of the Transformers movies and you just want some like, you're just here for the tunes, or you just want to see a bunch of robots punch each other and you're not particular as to who, the final fight scene in this is worth the price of admission alone. Because very much B is of the he actually pulls an Iron Giant and he loses his memories in the beginning of this after fighting David Sobolov. We'll get to him. He loses his memories towards the beginning of the movie, and gets them back throughout, and you see him kind of revert into the hardcore Rampage and Ravage, Revenge of the Fallen, badass Bumblebee, but still having very much kind of a tender spot for Haley Steinfeld's character, who is by leaps and bounds the best human protagonist we've had in any of these movies, and it's like, you very much like, it's a what you see what you get kind of with that character archetype of, like, oh, she's a teenager and she's just lost her father, and she's really not now that she's got this stepdad and everybody seems to be moving on, she's kind of acting out a little bit and she's not certain how she fits into this household. But I have a lot of respect for Haley Steinfeld as an actress, as well as an artist, apparently, because I didn't I forgot about this, but she apparently did the featured song at the very end of the movie as well. So doubly impressive. Yeah, but she's a really solid actress in this. They really do share chemistry together, and she's likable, and it's not like Megan Fox in Revenge of the Fallen, where you're like, okay, how on God's green earth are we supposed to buy that this character works? And how are we supposed to buy that this character works in this dingy, greasy shop? Like, no, she looks like a teenager, and she goes everywhere and gets covered in grease and gunk and shit. And what's interesting from that dimension too is that it feels very much like these are two, like, she and Bumblebee, I mean, are occupying the same space together. For as I was really worried seeing the aesthetic of some of the characters in this, that it was just going to be like you were watching a cutscene from War for Cybertron or Fall for Cybertron up on the big screen. And no, like, actually, it's undoubtedly more G1 inspired. I was a little sad to see in the background that Ironhide is apparently back to red, because his truck design in these movies is one of the few I think is a little bit more sets him apart a little bit more than his traditional G1 red van self. But like when he and Optimus are talking in the beginning of the movie, there's a great shot when he reaches over to place his Optimus places his hand on Bumblebee's shoulder, and like you see gears and greebles and all sorts of things that actually like come together and form this contiguous whole. But like the way that it's textured is it doesn't feel distractingly off. Um, just because of like his proportions and the way that like his coloration. There are a couple of shots, not so much scenes, where Bumblebee himself looks a little bit out of place in the larger surroundings on Earth. Um, but yeah, like I really I've honestly not been super inclined into rehashing uh G1 designs as of late in Transformers because it feels like we're getting that a lot. Like reverting back to the Bumblebee alt mode for this, and all the other uh, designs in this movie, with the exception of the original characters, obviously being very G1 inspired, or the one whatever the hell toy line it is that's out right now. But it looks really good here. And I'm gonna say I think this is a better Bumblebee design. Honestly, like it's much cleaner, but they get the texturing right, so it usually doesn't look like egregiously fake or anything. They gave him these really big, expressive. Like they kept, I guess they kept it because it's pretty much the same design with a few greebles taken out, but like it's not. It's a believable interaction, and despite the fact that he has, for most of this movie, no voice after David Sobolov as Starscream as Blitzwing. I like that, a cool character, but I have no idea why they. It's like watching David K. Get blown up by Miko in season 2 of Transformers Prime. He's only in this movie for 2 minutes. Actually, that is weird. Why the hell did they not have David Sobolov voice Shockwave? They're at it. Sorry, I'm rambling. No, but it's very expressive. It's very. I mean, like besides the alt mode, it's certainly evocative of other Bumblebees we've seen in the past, but it's very much its own separate thing. It's not overly busy. Yeah, from a production standpoint, I really thought every aspect of that was solid. It's very 80s, which is something that I had issues with in another movie, which just felt like it took a couple of beats from, which was which came out last year. But considering the era that Transformers debuted in, it doesn't feel shoehorned in that in for connectivity in the way that it did in It, because it was distracting in that film. I will say that Charlie has infinitely better taste than the kid in that movie. It's among other things, a Pretenders poster up on her wall. I felt she and Bumblebee had good character chemistry. And like she's a teenager and she's gone through some shit, but like I'm sure teenagers under duress act out and are a little bit shitty at times, and she does that well without being like unlikable, like being a fucking unbearable shrieking prick. But John Cena is actually a lot of fun in this movie. A lot of stuff with the nascent Sector 7 is very hammy. It feels intentionally so, just in the way he delivers his lines. And there's a part at the end which is, I love that they took the piss out of Michael Bay so bad when he salutes Bumblebee at the end, and Bumblebee's just like, like, I saved your life. We're cool now. You're still a bit of a dickhead. No, so he's a lot of fun. Unlike around like the 70-minute mark of Revenge of the Fallen when Optimus dies, and then you have whatever the hell his name is coming in and just like making where you can like see him making the movie like an hour and 50 minutes longer. It's like they don't do that. Like it feels like a believable aspect of what this, you know, like how this situation would react. And they do. It is a little bit contrived, but he actually like touches down in the forest and then has this fight with Scream Wing in front of John Cena. Very much, and that's very much what informs kind of his desire to see Bumblebee neutralized as a threat, and to the extent that you know, like when they Shatter and Dropkick, our villains, come in and try to parley with the military and Sector 7, where he's like, okay, yeah, like I don't trust you guys, but I'm willing to help you out if it means tracking this dude down. Let's talk about Shatter and Dropkick for a minute. I applaud them for going the original villain route and like pulling out somebody who we have like no idea we have no pretext for in like any way, shape, or form, because they don't even unlike say like Prime or Arachne or something, they don't even look like existing characters that we've got. I'm trying to weigh this out in my head. I'd say probably in terms of like having an established dynamic and acting off of other people, I thought they were probably the most enjoyable villains we've ever had in the Transformers movies. First off, one of them is Angela Bassett just having a great time as Shatter. So kind of the one who, the manipulator who's trying to play it careful and playing the Autobots against the humans to achieve her own ends. And then Justin Theroux as just kind of the grunt who likes to kill people. They shoot the fuck out of two people in this movie. Like not like Kelsey Grammer, like I'm gonna, or Sam Witwicky in Revenge of the Fallen, like I'm going to shoot near you and you die. No, it's like they fucking kill people in this movie. They just turned two guys into snot, essentially. Not like, but having now put that lovely qualifier in everybody's mind, but it's not something that I feel I ever felt bad for taking my brother to. It's not like the last one we saw in theaters together was Age of Extinction. It's not like I'm explaining Romeo and Juliet laws to him in real time at any point. There is a scene in here where it is her birthday as the movie starts out, and so when she introduces herself to Bumblebee, she's like, "My name is Charlie and I'm 18." It was just like, oh no, don't go there. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say whatever comes next, but there are points in this movie, particularly in the immediately after the final sequence in this, which are very Shape of Watery, and not in a way where you're like, oh, they fucking, but I guess Venom is no longer the feel good romantic comedy of the year. And saying this makes me sound like a gross fuck too, but that didn't ever feel creepy, just as much as they are like close friends. I'm sure they did that intentionally because just because I'm sure our Mr. Knight watches movies, and that's a gorgeous final sequence in the beginning of that film. I actually thought this was a better movie than Shape of Water 2. Because they actually have screen time together. That's not a fucking montage. Way to simultaneously use and waste Doug Jones, which also involves Michael Shannon being more cartoony than John Cena and his character in Man of Steel combined. Um, I'm trying to think of what else to say. There's nothing in it that's going to surprise you necessarily besides the attention to detail and the complexity of it. It's very 80s, but I'm trying to think how to say this. It's 80s in a Stranger Things season 1 way and not in Stephen King's It or Stranger Things season 2 way. When it's like, okay, so we're in the 80s, so it's all 80s all the time. Here it is. Aren't you happy? You like the 80s. Um, it's it's a teenager's room. It looks like there's posters everywhere and stuff, but I didn't I wasn't my suspension of disbelief was never broken by the production design in this movie. Um, uh, and it's weird because this movie almost seems to reclaim a lot of story, not character beats from particularly the first two movies. There's a comedy relief dog who doesn't do anything obnoxious besides prompt Bumblebee to come in and wreck the house. There's the whole, okay, so the parents don't actually know in the beginning, and they don't see eye to eye all the time, but there's never any moment in this where Haley Steinfeld's mom is like running around and after eating a fucking pot brownie and telling everybody how she likes to listen to her son loses virginity and like gross shit like that. I know it's a smaller audience, but there are some people who like the Transformers movies. This is just good dumb fun. This is not those movies. There was nothing in this that made me feel there was nothing in this that made me feel bad for watching this or bringing my brother to it or knowing that this is going to be consumed by lots of people. At the same time, it's not and I was kind of trying to think about this critically. My affinity for this movie goes beyond it like scaling things back like that or any feeling like it's trying to be a damage control. It's ambitious in a different way than something like The Last Night would be, because that's an incredibly ambitious movie on paper when you when you just have the log line to it. It's just lazily, sloppily executed. Whereas this is a tried and true idea that works pretty solidly in most contexts, but not so well in others, but just done really well, and obviously done very passionately with a lot of care and attention to detail and real clear affinity for the source material. I'm trying to think, because obviously it's very Generation 1 flavored. I'm trying to think if there's a Cliff Jumper's in this movie. Prime fans, I'm sure will feel some affinity towards that and his character here. I was left wanting more. I want to see more where they go with this, and if they decide to do anything. It was nice to see an RC who's not just like a fucking greeble of motorcycle bits who runs around and gets shot. So hopefully they go somewhere with her. It's really, I think how you view this movie is really, and it is going to depend on how it's going to be contingent on how you feel about the other ones, but also how willing you are for them to be different. I'm obligated to give it a chance because I'm a Transformers nerd who has little life outside that, but I need this to do well, guys. I wasn't expecting to say this necessarily for something that is, formulaic and very much informed by the, going back to the G1 well, but this was a breath of fresh air. I want to see expansions with this director and this writer, and see where we go from here, because it feels like a really solid building block to more to come. There are some tired 80s conventions. Like they got the bullies in there, and it's something that's like, oh yeah, move it along. Come on. I want to see Angela Bassett hamming up again. I really have no major complaints about this movie. I know a lot of you are going to be interested, and I was too. I listened to it before going in, but um I don't know how other people feel about it. I really liked the score in this movie. For one thing, Charlie and Bumblebee's shared theme is solid, kind of evocative of what they did with Izzy in the last one, but it's stylistically different from a lot of what remote control does. Like, it's more complex. There's kind of like a orchestral scurrying. There's when Bumblebee transforms for the first time, there's some like cool things that they do with bassoons or contrabassoons, one of the two. But there are also moments. There are little callbacks to particularly the Force Transformers movie. There are two reprises of like a arrival to Earth light kind of. Like it is very clear what that's what they're supposed to be, but kind of matching the mood of the movie. Like the first one when he loses his voice, actually, and I thought that was really well done. It's neat to see a movie where it doesn't feel like different parts of it are competing for your attention necessarily. A huge problem I had with the last night was it felt like, okay, so we're gonna, you know, put Megatron's gonna get his crew back together in this stupid ass scene, and they're gonna go in, and they don't do anything. Oh wait, here come the humans in, and no, like it doesn't feel like anything like that. Like, you buy John Cena not trusting these guys, but willing to use them as a somebody to go after Bumblebee, or B-127 as he's called at the beginning of this. Yeah, I'm if you're like a diehard G1 purist, I think this will certainly make you happy. But it wasn't closed off in a way that a lot of things like G1 tend to be, and I like how that reaches out to ancillary media for other things. Like, most Beast Wars stories that kind of try and tie it into G1 are not fun to read because it's growing out. But this felt like they took the basic concept of Transformers Generation 1 and were like, okay, so we're going to make this accessible, but we also want this to be a springboard for all the other ideas that we have in production. An actual like a Hasbro owned animation house did the work for this, and it looks really nice for as small as a budget as they shot that on. It was weird seeing the people in a location that I have been before, because they're up in Santa Cruz essentially. Charlie actually works at the boardwalk, which doesn't look fun in the movie, but I wouldn't be complaining in real life necessarily. It's a colorful movie in an 80s movie, but it's not loud, and it doesn't. I had to do some clean a little bit of house on my computer. It's never visually busy, design wise or aesthetic wise, or in the same way that the Bay movies are, or even really the '86 animated movie, which I is near and dear to me on a personal level, and is objectively like kind of a mess. Like, come on, guys, we can be honest about that. The shots are all framed very evenly. The action is it looks good, guys. I don't know if it's because I've seen this, but like I've seen these movies so many times. Like, it wasn't necessarily like in the TF07 when you see like Bone Crusher and Optimus Prime transforming for the first time on that highway and duking it out, where you don't just get that sense of like, wow, okay, so like that's like they feel like they've got actual mass, and they don't have all this little bullshitty moments in the Michael Bay movies where like you'll have one character transform and then two others transform behind him, but you don't see that on screen because it's not in the shot, or like you'll like just moving the camera away from the action so they don't actually have to show it. Just like all the other little corner cutting bullshit that he does. I didn't hear like "run frog" for the 86th time in post or anything like that, but it really just comes together all in this nice package. There's like I said, there's some kick-ass fight scenes in this. There really aren't. There are explosions aplenty, but they all make a certain amount of sense. I'm pretty sure that Optimus Prime kills Thundercracker at some point, and that has me sad. If I had one thing to say, I don't like Optimus's design from the waist down in this. Like him having and it was super stylized in the were for the High Moon games as well, but it's just the proportions in that look a little bit weird. It is Peter Cullen doing the voice, thankfully. But like I didn't felt like I minded. I loved the as busy as it is, I really like the silhouette of the original Optimus Prime design. And the one that they had for the last two movies certainly is pretty if it's uh something that is almost impossible to make a functional toy out of. But um just in terms of like general expressiveness is up too. Like they make the faces for the Decepticons actually work pretty well in this. Like there are points where you can almost see Angela Bassett as Shatter suppressing a smirk. Like I said before, they're a lot of fun. It was refreshing to just have two characters that they could pretty much do anything they wanted with, and who weren't there specifically so that you would come and see them in the theater. So it wasn't like, oh, Shockwave does nothing that's evocative of any Shockwave before, but he's there. Oh, you want to see him? No, Shockwave's in this. Soundwave's in this. It's very fan servicey. I didn't feel like I minded though. Like some of them being very shallowly gratuitous or that kind of thing irks me, but it didn't really here. It did very much feel like them being mindful of saying like, okay, so we can do this correctly. This is an experiment. We hope we pays off. We'll go hear more. So I'm hoping that their next step, whatever they do, doesn't have that pitfall of Stranger Things season 2 syndrome and getting very aware of the era it's in and like throwing references at you. Because that's something that takes me out of a film. I want to see more of these. I want to see what they do with this. I want to see, like if they've got I think like a really solid base, and I want to see them build stuff on top of it because I don't know, Kubo the Two Strings was a fantastic film. I love a lot of the other stuff that Like has done in stop motion. This cozy little corner of the world feels like lived in and occupied by actual people. Her family's obviously not the reason you're here, but they're all decent. And they're on screen a decent amount, but they actually feel like characters, and like they grow together by the end, and they're not really. There's a doofy stepdad character in there who I was initially kind of wary of, but they're not shrill. I really hope this movie does well. I hope they don't. I think that really the worst thing going forward from this point would be this movie doing terribly, because it doesn't seem like it's doing tremendously well at the box office, considering it's going up against Spider-Verse and Aquaman. I really hope this movie doesn't fail, and then they're like, you know what? Okay, so this actually isn't working. We're going to go back to really Michael Baying the shit out of it. Because just seeing it for the first time, it wasn't a case of... I didn't simply feel affection for it because I liked one or two aspects of it. Like the whole shebang was something that I was on board for pretty much the entire time. And like I don't know, it's Boxing Day today. If you guys want to get me a late Christmas present, go see this movie. If you weren't planning to, like, if you saw it, see it again. Tell your friends who might be interested. Like, make sure, do your part to make sure this goes well. I know I will be telling people to go see this, especially as I have friends who are animators. But yeah, like I really want to see this do well to the point where they are comfortable with doing another one, because I honestly feel like if they do another one with the same team and a more ambitious thing than I could really see once they've got a word of mouth out, I could really see a second movie just doing gangbusters and opening the door for Travis Knight and Christina Hodson and whoever else worked on this and lent their talents to it, really taking Transformers in the public eye to places we haven't really been before. Because it's one of those things which is has its share of awesome fans, and I hope this movie is as engaging to fans and feels like you're getting more back from it as I felt like it was. Because it wasn't even like I want to say Force Awakens is probably the best thing, where I was generally receptive to it, but had reservations, because everybody was talking about like Force Awakens when it came back out. This being a throwback to 80s movies, I'm sure there are plots that don't really go anywhere the way that I'm thinking of. The Decepticons invent the internet, essentially. I'm sure Tim Berners-Lee is over in the corner just going, fucking Decepticons. But, no, he's not doing that. No, I hope that, whatever your bent is and wherever you're coming at from these movies as a fan or even just a casual observer or anything, I really want this to do well because I want to see where they go from this point. And it's a really, really solid starting point and enjoyable movie on its own merits. And I'd really be interested in seeing them doing more. Yeah, it is 11 o'clock in the evening. I have rambled on for plenty of time now. I'm sure by this point you've probably before this video you made up your minds as to whether or not you're going to go see it. I would declaratively say, like, at least give it a shot, because this is the first like Transformers movie that I've been to where I've heard, like, in theaters at least, where I've heard laughter and applause at different occasions. Applause at the end. My brother and I actually started clapping along with it because it was fun. I had there is one part at the end which breaks suspension of disbelief a little bit when she's restoring a car, and it feels very much like the end of Baby Driver, and that it's just like, that's just to be a little bit beyond the pale for what I would imagine like this character's means being at, but that's a really minor complaint. I don't know if I would be down with Haley Steinfeld coming back in some capacity. It looks like they may have plans at least for whatever comes next, or are dealing a pretty solid bluff. I'm eager to see where they go with this. Happy holidays. I hope you guys have a really, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you have a really safe and pleasant end of 2018 now, going into 2019. And I wish you guys the best, and girls the best, and robots who are listening in the best. Yeah, good night.
And his name is John C.